Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast. We have Brad Cox with us. Brad is the business leader, he's a speaker, team builder, and a podcast host. I'm glad to have him on. Brad, welcome to the pod. Tell us a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, look, as you can probably tell, or maybe not, but it's dark where I'm. I'm based out of Melbourne, Australia, and look, I mainly do business speaking and around more about motivation and inspiration, but particularly for middle-aged people, and sort of navigating the middle areas of life and sharing my story as well. I'm 25 years in the event industry in particular, globally, sort of delivering major events across the world. And so I navigated that for 25 years, and I have a passion for sport as well. So combining all those two things into one sort of gives me to what I do these days. And you mentioned a podcast. Yeah, as I say, I also host another podcast called An Eventful Life, which shares podcasts and journeys of people in the event industry in particular, and sort of how they've navigated their own journeys, be able to share that for other people, inspire others that maybe coming into the industry or just to get more exposure to it as well.
Yeah, tell me a bit more about the sporting side of things. I see triathlons, I see ultra running possibly as well. So tell me a bit more about that facet of yours.
I thought that might spark your interest because I believe you're very similar. And
Yes.
yeah, so my background triathlon for a number of years. So similar to yourself, done Ironman and a bunch of those throughout my journey. I slowed down a little bit. I'm only middle aged, but too many injuries these days. So I still run quite a lot. So marathons, sort of middle distance, half marathons are sort of my little sweet spot these days. So yeah, just a passion that I picked up. Probably in my early 20s, to be honest. I'd always had an interest in sport. Like I said, I played a lot of individual sport. I was heavy into motor racing and so forth. And then I got dragged. I got dared into a fun run once. There's a great fun run down here called the Mountain to Surf, which runs through the back of the hills near the ocean. And I got dared into that in my tennis runners one day, and I couldn't walk for a week, and I fell in love with the sport. And then before I knew it, I was down at a triathlon club, and I'd bought a bike, and I started swimming again, and off I went. So I went on that journey for a number of years. And look, I just think community, the physical benefits of it, the mental side of things of challenging oneself is the big driver for me. And I believe you're probably very similar as well. So it's about finding a challenge. So for me now, it's sort of shifting into that ultra running focus moving forward. Just as something that I can spend the time doing and get out in some fresh air. And yeah, I absolutely love it.
Right, and I believe your son's into go-karting. Are you sometimes afraid that he'll run into a collision? What's your relationship with motorsports and the possible accidents?
Yeah, well, not as bad as you on your motorbike, I can tell you that much. We've got four wheels to worry about. So, look, yeah, my son's 8. He's just started karting. As I said, I had a motorsport background, sort of in my teens and early 20s, a really heavy passion of mine. I travelled the country, sort of, competing at a national level in karts. Never took it any further. Life took over in terms of career and elsewhere, but I've actually restarted racing myself in the last few years alongside my nephew. And I sort of got that bug back as well. So, look, I've had my journey of injuries as well when I was 17 and studying for my final year of high school here, secondary school. I actually broke my back go-karting. So that's a bit of a story there. So yeah, so the injuries are there, and I actually had a pretty nasty accident last year, funnily enough. So even in my older age, and managed to smash my collarbone into a number of pieces and break a few ribs and concuss myself. And so it's a dangerous sport. I do get a little nervous, but I'm comfortable that he's on four wheels. And look, again, it's just one of those things. It's a challenge. He's brand new to it. My son. He's learning. It's a great community environment. It's a great community sport. It's grassroots motorsport. It's relatively affordable. So it's just finding common interests at the end of the day for me. For me and my son, we get to spend a lot of time, and I spend a lot of time with my brother at the racetrack as well. And my dad comes, and so we've got three generations at the racetrack. We spend a weekend together. We go camping, and have a great time with like-minded people. And for that reason, it's a great sport. But like I said, motorsport in particular is generally something on our television here, and it's got four wheels or two wheels or you can probably start to get a gist whether it's a bike or whether it's a car. That yeah, we love everything on wheels.
Yeah, Australians are shining on the racing scenes, not only on two wheels but four wheels. A bit less in F1, right? I think it was Daniel Ricciardo that sort of had his up and down, but yeah, it's great. The competition level there is just insane, right? Because it's speed, it's intensity, it's reflexes, it's condition. So love
Yeah, absolutely.
motorsport, the noise and
And
everything between.
Absolutely, and I think again, they go. We talk about triathlon stuff and endurance triathlon in particular, and also motorsport. The mental side of things, the level of mental aptitude you need to be able to do those two sports shouldn't go unnoticed. And motorsport is heavily physical as well. So there's a lot of people my age, and I'm not that old. I'm 43. But most of people that I race with, the juniors that are still involved in the sport, are going, "Why are you still racing? You're mad!" They physically can't do it, and it's just I think it's the conditioning that I built over the triathlon space in particular. Not that I'm some super uber fit person these days, but you need that physical fitness as well. So yeah, so great sport. I love it. It's like I said, it's a passion project, and again, it just goes hand in hand with challenging oneself that I do in the business world, and then being able to apply that to the rest of my life as well. And it's something that I've always done. I've always chased maybe what the others can't, or what other people in particular. I got told a lot as I grew up. Oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, and in various different ways. And it's like, well, sit back and watch me because I'm going to have a good go at this.
Yeah, and it's always funny when people tell you that because, yeah, at first, like prove them wrong, that can bring you a large distance, but ultimately, how we make it is education, and it's just crunching data and adding stuff to our routines. And if people
Yeah.
knew that the difference between the, oh my God, you're crazy, I would never do that, the difference between this and actually doing it is just research and doing and being a scientist. That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely, and having a plan, I think, is a major, major thing. So I think a lot of people get stuck with going and looking at the end goal and not worrying about all the little steps to get there, and putting a plan in place to be able to actually get to your goals. And I see that a lot in what I do with workshops and speaking these days. The amount of people that go, "Oh, I can't do that," so I'm not good enough. Someone else has already done that. It's like, well, you can do it if you want to do it. It is possible. You've just got to work out your plan on how you're going to get there for you, not worry about everyone else, and you can achieve whether it's dreams, whether it's goals, whether it's aspirations in business and life. It's all doable.
Yeah, and do it your own way, like you said, because yeah, you're not like everyone. Like the way I trained for Ironman was weird as hell, right? Like I also didn't do any triathlon before my first half Ironman, so you don't
Oh
necessarily
wow,
need to do it like the way that everyone does. And same for my training for my 110K that's coming up this year. It's weird as hell, right? It's adapted around my
yeah,
entrepreneur schedule, which is my first identity, my first passion. So not necessarily need to do it the way everyone does.
100%. Yeah, you got to make it work for you. So whether that's in your schedule, if that's the way you want to do it, if that's doing something quirky, I do a lot of running on a treadmill now, which I never used to do, but
It's
it just
actually
works for
fun on
me.
the treadmill. It's really technical. It's really scientific and predictable. I love treadmill running. Never thought I'd say
Yeah,
that.
I'm 100% there with you. So, again, that sort of I had to adapt because I've got two young children now, and I couldn't go outside for an hour and a half, and leave them at home by themselves. That was my window. So I'm like, oh, well, how am I going to do this? Because I still want to run. So, it's maybe not as I still love going outside, and I still, I've got a running track right behind me, and I get to go down there quite a bit. But it's you just got to be able to adapt to your different circumstances and your environment. And you hear all these stories, people that have maybe there's guys that are in the Navy, for example, that go and do Ironmans, and they're doing their full training on stationary equipment, and then show up. Lionel Sanders is a great example of it, but it's crazy the amount of stuff that people do. But it's about having that drive and passion about where you want to go. If you want to do something, exactly like you adapt yourself, you make the plan, and then you set out and just tick it off slowly by slow, moment by moment. So I don't know if I'd take on an Ironman my first triathlon. I did a few smaller ones before
A
I
half, not
tackled
a
the bigger.
full. Like that's
Uh,
important. Like not a full.
yeah,
That would be
y-
crazy, but
yeah,
still
yeah.
doable.
It's doable. Absolutely. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that have done that and just step right in. But and again, I think it's one of those things in triathlon in particular. And I know we're not talking about triathlon all the time, but it's a good thing for anyone at multiple ages, right? You've got people that are 16 to 18 years old just starting out, and there's a great physical foundation for them as human beings. And then you've still got people well into their 70s and 80s that are still running around and doing it because they love the sport. And it's an individual test. So you don't have to be going out there to win every race. It's about competing, it's about participating, it's about challenging oneself, and getting the most out of it for yourself.
Yeah, and competing against yourself, I guess, is the greatest thing. It's always fun to chase someone, right? Like a predator
Yeah.
would chase a prey, but ultimately you get past, and you need to have your ego on check because that happens quite often. And yeah, it's just a major lobotomy in the best of ways to get yourself into an Ironman. When you get in the water with 200 other very anxious individuals that are slapping you and pulling you, and just getting in the water by yourself is like technically drowning. That's a test, right? And then stepping on the bike is fun, but gets quite lonely after, yeah, in the case of an Ironman, like 120K, your legs start to be jelly, and then finally working on running on jelly legs. It's an
Yeah.
experience everyone should go through for the mindset gain in your personal life, but also in your business life. Do you transcend some of the lessons that you got in there from your personal life and your business life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think particularly in the business stuff, and I go back to the speaking side of things, it's very much about, setting plans and setting goals and objectives, but also challenging oneself, and how we're going to apply them, those methodologies that we do in sport, into our business life and our personal life as well, but, into business as well. So, and that's all about goal setting, planning, management. I mean, you talk about long distance triathlon, the fact that there's so many different facets that go into it, not just the three sports themselves, but what about all your nutrition? And what about when things go wrong? And, whether that's a mechanical thing or your body starts to shut down or you're not feeling very well or you're a bit dehydrated or you miss, a hydration point, you've got to be able to adapt to all those circumstances and environments that, weather comes into play as well. The same applies in business. We have to constantly adapt ourselves along that journey. So as much as we have a plan and a goal to get to, there will be things that we need to shift our way through. So we talk about all those things and how we adapt that. And I think for me in particular, I came out of the event industry, which is a high pressure. It's been voted, one of the top 5 most stressful industries in the world for umpteen amount of years these days. You get one shot at an event. There's no second chance. We can't hit the retake button. There's nothing like that. So it's literally you are planning to deliver something in a live environment, which comes with huge amounts of stress, and it goes to you're dealing with people. A lot of people to work with to achieve that goal and that outcome and that vision for that event, but a lot of people that are there sitting, participating in those events. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with those style of events. So you've got to be so meticulous in the way you go about it to get a successful outcome. And again, I think the learnings that we take from sport in particular and how we apply ourselves into that environment is testament to the greatness that it can be. But they just go hand in hand so well. And while I think I've flourished and why I've enjoyed it so much over such a period of time.
Interesting. And yeah, the events business, like on D-Day, I mean, you mentioned it various times, like planning and so forth. That's like how you prevent most of the stress, but shit hits the fan anyways in the events business. So what do you do? Like, how do you manage the last minute errors or bugs that occurred on D-Day?
Yeah, so look, I had a famous mentor that once said, if you don't do the paperwork, you don't do the party. So it's all about making sure you've done the planning to the nth degree. And it's not events, the delivery part is actually 5% of the work that goes into it. So it's the lead up to it and the planning and all the work that's done around the production side of things and the design side of things, and there's 100 different facets to it. Get you to that point. Now, things will always go wrong, or may go wrong. So you have to be calm. You have to understand what you're trying to do so you can make decisions in the moment. So, and I think that calmness approach and that awareness approach is probably the biggest thing. A lot of people get flustered, and they sort of put their head down and they scramble and they panic, and that doesn't serve anyone well. As soon as people see panic, then everyone panics. So it's about just going, okay, What's the situation I've got in front of me? Exactly like we would back in our triathlon we were just speaking about. What's the situation in front of me? What are my options? What make a decision, an informed decision to then be able to move forward. And look, I've seen some crazy stuff go wrong, and from people in traffic jams to driving down the wrong side of roads to get entertainment to an event on time and onto national broadcast onto TV by literally the skin of our teeth, to stuff happening in China with cultural side of things, to things being shutting down. And I'll give you one example. We were meant to do a massive fireworks and pyrotechnic display in as part of a conference actually in Shenzhen in China on this Spanish galleon pirate ship. They've got a full size pirate ship. And long story short, the week before there was a fire in a nightclub in that town. And the local council just banned all fireworks, all fireworks. So we walked in town. You can imagine the cultural difference as well, and got told, "Well, sorry, you can't do your show." So we had to then adapt an entire, major scale production on the basis of a decision that was made locally that had nothing to do with us at all. But so you spend 6 months planning that, and all of a sudden within a couple of days you've then got to completely redesign an entire show. So again, you just got to work with what you've got in front of you, and work to your best ability and negotiate and mediate and be creative. And but the biggest thing there is be logical, but most importantly, just don't stress. And I always got known for the kind of guy that could go to and go if we've got a situation, go to Brad and he'll give you a calm answer. And so I think that's just the nature of who I've been, and the way I've always looked at it. So that's the way I try to apply myself in everything I do.
And do you have on the spot solvers, like people that you will deploy in special ops, special cases like that to actually manage that stress? How do you find these people?
Yeah, so, and look, I don't do as many events these days in terms of physically design and produce them, but look, a team's the big thing. And if I go and produce an event these days, I want my team. And when I say my team, they are experienced people that I trust, and that's the most important thing. And this applies to anyone in business, right? It's like I want to go into battle, so to speak, with the people that I know, the people that I trust, that are very good at their job, and we all have our own roles and responsibilities in those events, and that way I know with confidence going in that I've got the support of those behind me, and that we'll all help each other out as we go through. But the biggest thing there, the two words are team and trust, and I think anyone can apply those to how they go into business in particular, and apply themselves.
And nowadays, what does a day in your life look like? You have a couple of businesses, you do speaking as well. What does
Yeah.
it look like?
So I'm more of what you'd probably call me a solopreneur these days, in different ways. So a number of different things. I sort of juggle, obviously my speaking and my workshops, are probably the core part of my business. I still produce a couple of events, but special ones that are close to my heart. I got a big charity one that I do each year, and that just keeps my finger in the pie, and keeps me sane because I love it. I have an online course that still runs, that I developed during COVID time, called an Events Masterclass, which is sort of 20 years of my event industry knowledge out. But yeah, most of my work is in the speaking and the workshop space, and then my podcast, an Event for Life, which I spoke about. So that's probably my passion project these days. And as I said, we interview event industry leaders from across the world and share their story. And I do that with a close friend of mine, Shane Buzzer. And that's been great, and just a really therapeutic situation. And you know it as a podcast host, how often do you get to put your phone down for an hour or so and actually just have a really good conversation with someone? So we really enjoy that. So again, just juggling 4 or 5 things, and I can fill up a day and a week very, very quickly.
Interesting. And your podcast, how do you prepare for it? How do you find your guests? Give us a bit, us a broader glimpse of your strategy.
Yeah, it's probably evolved over time. When we first started, it was very much a platform to give the event industry some space in the marketplace, and let people understand all the different nuances about the industry and all the different people and skill sets that make that up. And because again, there's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about events, but we wanted to talk about the people, or let the people talk about themselves and share their journeys and their life stories. So initially we did a lot of reach out. Now we get more of the inbound inquiries about people wanting to be on the show. And we've managed to spread. We've now done 4 seasons. We're just about to go into season 5 actually, and we're in 37 countries and around the world, and people just resonate with it. So we've got a long list of people that come in. We've just slowly adapted our production style of things. It was initially a passion project to allow to give the industry something. It certainly also allows us to get some exposure to ourselves, and I think that's an important piece for anyone that's an aspiring podcaster as well. There's a lot of podcasts out there. Find your niche, but we don't hammer our own promotional side of things as part of it. But Shane and I, it's a good marketing channel for us, just for some exposure as to who we are, and both our businesses. And he runs his own business, and I run my own, obviously. So that's part of it. We started off just audio based. We didn't sort of go full production, but again, we want to do it properly. So we've just slowly built the brand around it. Build our awareness out of it, engage, particularly in Australia where we're based. We started here first, then we've just slowly, organically developed into America and into Europe and so forth, and then just let it take its course. So I think the biggest thing with podcasts is, and again, you'd be testament to this, I'm sure, is it's not a 5-minute job. They take a bit of time, and there's plenty of tools out there that you can use to help yourself along that way. Particularly in that AI space that I know you're prevalent in as well. But at the same time, they're not just bang them out and let them go. There's quite a bit of work. We still probably spend nearly a day on each episode from start to finish. And in terms of when we first conceptualize something, to all our research, to then recording, to then post production, to then marketing and branding and so on. And so it's still anywhere from half a day to a day on that per episode. But that's, we want to do it right, and we're trying to do it as best we can and learn as we go.
And is there ROI with that full day process, or is still like in the passion project category?
It varies between the two, if I'm being honest. We certainly have some supporters on board now, which is fantastic, and some partners that help us, to sort of offset some of that time. But at the same time, we still invest far more than we get out of it. Currently, we'd like to see it go the other way, but I think, like a lot of these passion things, it's not our core business, so we tip more into it, to continuously improve it and continuously better it. So yes. So to answer your question, there is a return, but it's not in the positive side of things at this stage.
How do you get guests to trust you and open up about sensitive topics, for example, mental health?
Good question. You've got to understand your audience, and whether that's one person or 1,000 people, and I do that with the speaking side of things. You've really got to understand who you're talking to, and then be able to adapt your questioning and your demeanor and your presence to work in line with who they are. So while still being true to yourself at the same time, you've really got to understand, okay, what sort of ticks their or floats their boat and sort of gets them moving. And so we'll navigate some early stuff. To give you an example, we generally go quite early in their life. So we talk a lot about their personal stuff. So it might be their upbringing, hobbies, to start to get to them to naturally warm up. And people sort of say, oh, we've got a therapy couch in the studio, and people sort of start to talk, and then you can sort of get into the more deeper stuff as we go along. And we've generally been really lucky that people just sort of have gelled with us in that way. We've got a good banter between the two of us and a good balance that, we just sort of slowly go there. And sometimes you'll find people start to get a bit twitchy in a seat, or they're sort of hesitant on talking about something. So you've got to quickly navigate to a different storyline rather than push too hard. And we might circle back on something. But it's, I think at the end of the day, people are happy to talk. And I think that's important in our guest selection as well. Trying to find people that have got good stories, and they've got good experience and that can share something. And it's just trying to find that value in there that resonates with our audience.
Because a lot of them will kick into PR modes, right? Like they'll put like that face on, and they'll just resuscitate ideas over and over again rather than thinking on the spot and coming up with something new, which I found was a characteristics in my best guests. I think, like you said, it's research and it's bringing the right people. And I tend to have lots of that because I target CEOs and founders, right? But it's all in the ICP and the preparation sort of.
It is in the preparation side of thing, 100%. And I think for us, we don't go too technical deliberately. We try and keep it more personal based, so that people can naturally talk about themselves. And again, that's a strategic kind of decision. There's still some technical elements that come into it, but we actually probably try to steer out of those as quick as we possibly can. Not because we can't talk about them, but sometimes you can go down a rabbit hole. And again, you get that in business, right? You can end up down a rabbit hole or a train of thought, and it's not the right way to go. And then before you know it, you're somewhere you don't want to be. So again, we just try and navigate our way out of that. But the strategic side of things is important. The research is absolutely paramount to it. We do not go into a podcast without having a couple of pages of notes. Not that we necessarily will use all of those, but if you don't have that plan, I go back to planning. If you don't have that plan ready to go for an episode so that we can navigate where we want to go and maybe take it back to where the conversation needs to be, then it will go off track, and that's when things start to get a little jaded, and you end up down somewhere you don't want to be, and then the guest gets awkward and it's like, why are you asking me about that? I don't want to talk about that. I didn't think it was about those kind of things. Or we end up, slagging off the industry or something we don't all like about it, and it's like, oh, this is very negative, so let's get it back on it. We try and keep it as positive as we possibly can.
Yeah, I get it. Speaking of you, also you often mention plan, right? Plan. Is there a plan for an actual burnout? I think you're pretty public about the burnout that you had in 2018. Is there a plan for that? Is there a prevention plan also for it? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, so good topic. It does fall into my speaking a lot, and sort of one of my keynotes is very much geared around my story. And very very quickly, in the end of 2018, I had a complete mental breakdown. I was just pushing the boundaries at both ends and burning the candle at both ends, as they say. And I literally was going to pick my daughter up from kindergarten one day, and I had all dizzy spells, and I was hanging onto the side of the car, and I managed to get home, and I collapsed into bed. And the next thing I knew, I was in hospital. They thought I had a heart attack. Turns out that I just absolutely pushed the limits mentally and physically beyond what I thought was possible, and probably to my own detriment, going all the way back to our Ironman stories of like, you push and push and push and push, and I'll be right, I'll be right. It's you just got to keep going, and that burnt me in the end. So it took me probably over 2 months to be able to physically walk back into my place of business at the time, and work. I tried a couple of times, and it was like the building was on fire, and all these cliches that everyone talks about are actually real, in terms of experiences. It was a very dark period. I put on a lot of weight, and I was just in a really bad spot. I was drinking quite a bit with colleagues and stuff. So it was a really rapid spiral that sort of led to that point of time, to sort of navigate my way back out of that situation and make sure that it doesn't happen again. But most importantly, to be able to educate others on the triggers of life, having that balance, and what does balance actually really look like, and that's different for each person. So things like, some people love working, and they're okay with it. That's a happy place. There's nothing wrong with working 7 days a week if you're happy to do that. Other people need fresh air. Other people need family times. Other people need really social time. Other people need much more introverted and will need time to themselves. So we talk about all these different things that can happen in our life, and so for me now, it's very much on a balance. I don't work 7 days a week, which is what I used to do. I try and base myself as much as I can from here. I normally work 4 or 5 days. I balance my days out a lot. Some days I'll start later and finish later. And so I've just made those lifestyle changes to adapt. And at the end of the day, work's not everything. Life is everything, and those life experiences and making sure that you are sort of present in your own life, and prioritizing what you want to do, is really important. So supporting team in that regard too. So when we talk about business, it's for the leaders out there, it's very much about understanding the people in your team and letting them have that space. And we talk about how to get that space for each of those individuals, and they're all different. Not one thing fits the mold of everyone. And I think that's the big shift from a business point of view, of trying to get away from 9 to 5, one box, everyone in that box. And this is the way we're going to run it. It will fail. So we talk about how to adjust to those different things.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I had similar experience as well. Like a lot of ultra endurance athletes and Ironmans, they don't talk about like the aftermath, right? Like
Yeah.
after the race, what happens? How you when you like completely break down your body, like what happens also mentally, right? It's interlinked for sure. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that, Brad. Where can people find out more about you?
The easiest place to find me is on bradcox.com. That's bradcocs.com. That's sort of my personal website these days, and there's links to everything that I do on that site. So, and a little bit more about me and my background on there as well. So yeah, that's it. That's the easiest spot to find me. Obviously, still on LinkedIn, Instagram, all those things. I'm not the biggest social media user these days, but I try and do as best as I can and just have a little niche spot in there. So where possible. But yeah, look, I still get around, I still travel, and I love travel. So that's probably my biggest thing these days. So me and my family, we spend a lot of time traveling around the world. In particular, we're lucky enough to be able to do that and have the balance. And again, that comes back to balance of life and priorities. So, I generally pop up here and there, but keeping tune on there, and plenty of photos and images. But in terms of a home base these days, bradcox.com is the best place to find me.
So it's Brad and Charles for